Now that we've made the portals interesting, we want to make them actually teleport our agent from one location to another. So for instance, I'm going to take this little portal and I'm going to put it all the way down here. And what we want to happen is when our agent comes in contact, he's then beamed across this gap here and he doesn't fall down inside. And that's actually quite simple to do. You might want to open up a text pad on your computer or any sort of text application, or just grab a pen and some paper, because there's going to be some coordinates or pixel values that we're going to write down, and it's a little easier if you use either a notepad or a text application to do so. So first things first, we want to jump into our agent actor, and we'll do that by selecting our agent here in the actor bin, and then we're going to click on the backstage button. So now we're back inside of our agent. I went ahead and closed down everything that we were working on earlier, so we have a nice, neat workspace to start working in. And what we want to do at this point is we want to create a brand new rule. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Add Rule button. And in this very new rule, what I want to do is add in a collision. So in this first box here, I'm going to type in the word collision. So when a collision happens with the portal, so I'm just going to go to this second pull down and select portal, then what do I want to happen? So I'm going to open up this do drop down. Well, what I want my agent to do is something called interpolate. And interpolate is just a different word for, maybe in this case, to make it easy to understand, animate or change from one thing to another. So I want to change his position from one position to another. So in this second box here, I'm going to start typing in interpolate, and then you can select that here from the list. So we'll interpolate. And what do we want to interpolate? Well, we want to interpolate the agent's position, both in X and in Y. So I'm going to start with X. So what we want to interpolate is, we're going to click on that drop down and then grab this box here, is the agent's position in X. So we'll just double click. So see, all I did at this point was set up a collision. So inside the rule, when the agent comes in contact with the portal, then I want you to interpolate the agent's position in X to what location. Now at this point, we actually don't know what that location is. So here's how we figure out what that location is. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the backstage here, and I'm just going to create an empty actor. So I'll just click this plus icon up here in my actor bin, and we have this empty actor that does nothing. And in fact, I can just name this position. And I'm going to drag and drop this position actor exactly where I want my agent to end up. So you can scale this down a little bit. Doesn't really matter. So I know that when my agent comes in contact with the portal, I want him to end up in this location. So how do I know what that location is? Well, if I look up here at the top right, you can see that we have this position in X and position in Y. So I want to write that down now. So I know that I want my agent to move 725 pixels in X and to the 300 pixels in Y, which means he'll end up over on the right of the portal and just a little bit above the ground. Okay, so we can go ahead and delete that now. And we'll jump back into our agent by clicking on him here in the Actor tab, and then we're going to open up the backstage again. So now we know where we want our agent's X position to interpolate to. We wrote that down as 725. Now this for basically means for how long do you want this change to take place. So when our actor touches the portal, he'll then teleport to that pixel location of 725, and it'll take him 1 second to do that. I think 1 second is a bit too long, so I'm just going to lower this to half a second, so 0.5 of a second. So let's see if this works. So our agent, when coming in contact with that portal, should then teleport to the pixel value of 725, and it should take half a second. So let's see. And he does. Now you'll notice that he kind of almost fell down the hole a little bit, and that's because he still has that kind of move gravity force that we applied, pulling him downward. And that's why we also put the little white box a little bit higher, so we can push him up in Y a little bit. So instead of just teleporting from here straight across, he's actually going to teleport up there and then kind of fall down a little bit. So let's see how we can teleport him not only in X but also in Y. This is actually really simple to do. All we need to do is add in another interpolate behavior here. So I'm going to click on this box, and I'm going to type in the word interpolate again and select it from the list. And this time what I want to do is I want to interpolate. So I clicked on this little drop down, the agent's position in Y, so double click, to, and you saw earlier I wrote down that position of 300 pixels in Y. And I'm going to match the speed I want this to happen. So it's going to happen in 0.5 seconds. So I'll just type that in. So we have this: move your position from the current position you're in when you hit the portal to 725 and 300 in Y. And let's see if that works. And it does. You can see not only does he push over a little bit, but he actually shoots up a little bit and kind of falls down onto the platform. And that's all there is to setting up these portals to get our agent to kind of teleport across. So let's go ahead and set up one or two more portals and see how easy it is to actually keep setting up multiple portals in your scene. So I'll simply click on the portal here in the actor bin, and because I already took the time to set up all those particles, I want to just duplicate this portal. So I'm going to hold down the Option key or the Alt key, and I'm going to click and drag, and that's going to duplicate that portal. And you can see that we have portal copy here. So I'm just going to call this Portal 2. So this is a completely different actor. And let's go ahead and put Portal 2 in a different location. So we need to definitely span this gap or jump across this gap, so we'll put our portal in that location as well. And let's just test everything to make sure it's working well. So our agent does come in contact with that first portal and beams across, and then now we want him to beam across one more time. So let's set that up. Again, we'll click on our agent. If you don't have Backstage open, go ahead and open up your Backstage for that agent. And all we're going to do is rebuild this rule again for the second teleport. So I'll just go ahead and fold this teleport down, and I'm going to create a brand new rule here. So we'll click Rule, and that creates a brand new rule, and then we just want to repeat the process. So in this first box in this rule, what we want to do is type in the word collision, and we'll select that. So when a collision happens with now this time the second portal, so make sure you select that from the list here, what do we want to happen? So again, we'll open up the do, and in this box right here we're going to type in the word interpolate and select it from the list. And we want to, of course, interpolate the agent's position in X to a specific location, and we're going to do that in half a second. And then I'm going to, again, in this box down here, type in the word interpolate. And we'll click on this drop down. And one more time, we want to interpolate the agent's position in Y this time to a specific location. And we also want this to happen in half a second. So we don't have those locations. So again, we're going to have to go back into our workspace here. I'm going to turn off Backstage. And then that position actor that I created earlier, I'm going to drag that back into my scene here to where I want my agent to show up. And this time I'll just put it a little bit higher so we can see our agent drop a little bit further. You can set it up any way you want, but that looks like a good end position for my agent to kind of beam to. And again, I'm just going to look all the way up here in the top right to figure out what those position values are. So that little white box is currently sitting at 1232 pixels by 342 pixels in Y. So I've written those down so I don't forget. And now we just need to jump into our agent, open up our backstage, and plug in those values in this rule. So just like I did with this other rule, I'm just going to double click and call this teleport 2. And now I'm going to start plugging in those values. So this is for X, and for X we wrote down that we want to go to 1232 as far as the pixel value in X, and then for Y we want to go to 342. And we can see that we set up the amount of time it takes to get to that position. So let's go ahead and give that a try. Again, we'll press the play button. First teleport works perfectly, and second teleport beams exactly to that location as well. So let's set up one more teleport, just so we know we have this all set up perfectly and understand this concept. So I will again create one more rule. I'm going to go through it a little bit quicker this time. I'll rename this rule teleport 3. And I'll type in the word collision. So when you have a collision with teleport 3. Now you notice we don't have it here in the list. And that's because I actually made a mistake and I started creating this rule without my teleport 3 actor actually created. So if you don't see it in this list, just take the time to create one. So we'll go back into our actor tab here. Click on portal 2. I'll hold down the Alt or Option key and I'm just going to click and drag to duplicate that. I'll rename this portal 3. So now we're going to see that in the list. Again, I'll click on my agent here in the actor tab. Because I have backstage open, I still have this teleport 3 behavior or rule that I'm setting up. So now we can go ahead and select portal 3 from this list. So what happens when the agent comes in contact with portal 3? Well, in the do drop down, we want our agent to then interpolate. So I'll type in the word interpolate and select that. And we are going to, of course, interpolate our agent's position in X to a specific location. And again, I'm just going to make this happen over half a second. And then again, I'll add one more interpolate, and this is for the Y location. Again, our agent's position in Y. Switch that to half a second as well. And now all we need to do is find those locations for our third teleport. So I'll close down the backstage. And this time I'm going to have my agent teleport to this location up here. So now that I've moved that little position box to where I want, I can then again write down those new positions, which I can see up here is 1166 in X and 610 in Y. And this time I won't forget to delete this box. And we'll make sure that we have our third portal sitting inside of our scene. So we'll just put that over here. And let's preview this and see if all three portals work perfectly. And you can see that there's a bug in the third portal here. So we just need to troubleshoot that and see why isn't he going to the location that we want. So we're going to back up again, jump into our stage, and we want to just double check to make sure that we wrote down the right coordinates. Sometimes I leave these bugs into the video because you're going to come across them and I want you to kind of troubleshoot the way you see I'm troubleshooting live here. It's just part of working inside GameSalad. So again, I'm going to take this position. I'm going to put it in the right position here. and I'm just going to double check my coordinates. And I can see what I wrote down before was pretty accurate. I wrote down 1166 by 610. So as I'm troubleshooting here, I see that that's pretty close to where that is right there. So why isn't my agent going into that position? So let's go ahead and close that. Let's click on our agent here in our actor tab, and let's open up our backstage. And let's troubleshoot and figure out what is wrong with this third teleport. Well, if I take a look at the third teleport, we can see that these positions didn't change. And sometimes that happens inside GameSalad. You might not hit enter or return, and those values didn't get put into place. So I'm going to just try this one more time. So I'll type in 1166, and I'll hit enter or return. And then down here, I'm going to type in 610. And again, I left this mistake in the video, or it really wasn't a mistake on my end, but a bug inside GameSalad, because this does happen often, and I don't want you to panic. You just need to take the time to kind of troubleshoot it. And if you were even writing code, actual code, you would have to go through these steps of figuring out where are these bugs, what happened, what didn't take place. So let's close that down and open it back up just to see that those values stuck, so I can see that they are there. And let's try this one more time. So I'm going to move across. First one works, second one works, and then third one works. So it's just that those values didn't stick into place. So that's it for setting up portals. You can see how easy it is. It's only about finding out where that X and Y position is, and then plugging that into interpolate behavior. So now you can have your actor kind of pop around the scene. Now, one thing with this method that you're going to want to pay attention to is where you set up your portals and where you're actually beaming your agent to. Now, you'll notice the way that I have my portal set up, it's a pretty straight shot from this location over here to that location over there, and then the same thing with my second portal, and even my third portal has a pretty straight shot from this location down here up to over there, even though I do kind of go through the block object or actor a little bit. Now that kind of works the way I set things up, but for instance, if you set a portal here and you wanted it to kind of beam all the way through this location here, then essentially you're telling GameSalad to send your agent from this portal through all of this block and end up over here. Now that's going to be a little difficult for GameSalad to understand what to do, because you told GameSalad that the agent cannot go through the blocks because we set up that collision behavior earlier, but now we're essentially telling the agent to force through those blocks. And you'll notice that for some thin blocks like this, it actually kind of pushes its way through while we're doing the interpolate behavior, but you actually might run into trouble if you try to go through too many blocks. So just keep that in mind. Realize that's not a bug. You're just asking GameSalad to do two identical things, or two opposite things, I should say, which is don't go through the block, but then with the interpolate behavior, I want you to go through the block. So don't get worried if for some reason you can't get your agent to go through a whole series of blocks. Just set up your teleport direction so that you kind of have a straight shot for where you want your agent to end up. So go ahead and practice setting up as many portals as you want and teleport your agent around the scene.